Hello, everybody. Welcome to a kind of late Sunday fun day, to say the least. And I am by myself, unfortunately. That's just due to just terrible luck I've been having with anything that's a streaming service. Alright, so just throwing it out there. The movie that I am talking below, I have tried to watch it now six, seven times. I'm starting to lose count just because every time I'm trying to watch it, it keeps crashing. And I was like, all right, I want to watch this. Megan and me will actually be back together next week, and we're going to give y'all a review of The Old God next week. I know it came out technically this weekend, but whenever we figured out, it's like, oh, it actually released this weekend, and finally watched the trailers and learned a little bit about it. It was a little too late for us to get a review done before she was going to have to obviously go to work too this week. Me, my work schedule's a little bit more flexible. But hey, I decided like I'm gonna sit down and actually watch Palm Springs.
At least you have each other. Nothing worse than going through this shit alone.
Stop! There's a bomb in the cake. Don't worry, I used to be a bomb guy. Stand back!
Those who are wondering what Palm Springs is, it is a Hulu movie, actually all from the Lonely Island Classics is what they call themselves. Pretty much it's Andy Samberg's own production company. Ironically enough, Andy Samberg is the main character of this film. So, what I need to talk about before I can get into the movie, because I need to piss him out, I need to know what in the hell is up with Hulu. Oh, Jesus. I was like, alright, I'm going to watch this. And I was going to watch it yesterday during the day and get your review later on tonight. It was supposed to be up Monday. I'm like, alright, cool, I'm going to watch this. It's an hour and a half long movie. It seems like it's going to be kind of fun. It looks like it's going to be good and everything. Let me just sit down and watch it. Hulu just refused to cooperate. I tried to watch it a few times on my computer. Nothing. Alright, let me try it on my Xbox. Nah, I just can't connect to Hulu's servers. Okay, reset everything with Hulu. Tried it again on my Xbox. Nah, it doesn't recognize me, dog. Alright, try it again on my computer. I get 6 minutes in, stops. Then eventually I just broke down and watched it on my phone. Because I was like, alright, I'm just going to watch it this way because I can figure out no other way to watch this film. And hey, it actually sort of worked there. What the fuck, Hulu, is all I'm gonna ask. And why? Why are your servers so shit? Why can I not connect to you ever? Even Netflix, when it's getting hit the hardest, I've never had these kind of issues. Disney Plus, even, when it first launched, I didn't have this many problems. Hulu, I am still having consistent issues like connectivity. The fact that the movies will just suddenly drop in quality on how much I'm watching. I'm like, okay, cool. A cheap service like Tubi, I don't even have these kind of problems with. What the hell? But that's my little rant and rave against fucking Hulu and their shitty servers. I need to actually talk about Palm Springs. So, those who have actually watched the trailer or watched the clip that I always throw beforehand, if I hopefully can do it this time, because sometimes I just can't do it for one reason or another. This movie pretty much is just Groundhog Day. Andy Samberg is a guy who plays a guy named Niles to be exact. He is stuck in a time loop. Pretty much keeps reliving the same day over and over again. Though this seems to have a lot more in common with All You Need Is Kill. Those who have not read the book that Edge of Tomorrow is based on, or Live Die Repeat is what's kind of pretty much being called, which is funny because I think now the sequel is calling itself Live Die Repeat 2, which is a First Blood kind of issue of changing the titles. Whatever. Live Die Repeat is actually a much better title than Edge of Tomorrow, and also a lot more, indicative of what the movie's kind of about. But if you've never read All You Need Is Kill, first off, read it. It's a fantastic book. It's really damn good. It's been translated. It's in a manga form if you want to watch a manga. I'm going to eventually review the manga here after a while. I just need to decide to break down and just read it a bit. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And the reason why I say it's very much more indicative of that, because with Groundhog Day and there was another movie that was sort of like that, Happy Death Day to You, or Happy Death Day, not Happy Death Day to You. I haven't actually seen Happy Death Day to You. And those, it seems like the loops were very quickly taken care of. Here, as with All You Need Is Kill and Edge of Tomorrow, these loops are just constant. And it's gone to the point to where less of the character is like, like trying to constantly figure out his way, but they're almost used to this fate. They've pretty much they're like, alright, well, this is what my fate is. This is what I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. It is what it is. Which is kind of a sad statement, but also kind of an understandable statement, at least from certain regards. Because Adam Sandberg, he's, just stuck in this loop of this girlfriend. He learns cheating on him. He's kind of a bit of a schlub, is the best way to put it. He really underperforms with many different things. And because of that, he's began to get pretty much a nihilistic view on the entire world. And it's understandable. In fact, at one point, it becomes a bit of a plot point that he ended up getting this one guy, his name is Roy, who is played by J. Jonah Jameson himself, because of one night when they all got just coked out of their minds and everything, and he just like drug him into there so that way he could relive this life over and over again. And then it turns out Roy actually kind of went a little psycho because of that. And though understandably so, it shows different ways on how different people would deal with this kind of an issue happening to them, or being stuck in that kind of a way. And I actually kind of dug that. I like the fact that this does admit that this is not a unique kind of concept. It does admit that this is not something that hasn't been done before, but it does want to try and deal with it in a really different way. Now, of course, there is a love story to this whole thing. Turns out there's this young girl, her name is Sarah. She is the maid of honor of this one wedding that Niles happens to be at with his girlfriend. And she's like the family fuck up in the best way of putting it. She's made mistakes. She's done a lot of bad things that she regrets. Pardon me. Some of them actually have a bit of a plot relevance, but at the same time they kind of don't always feel like they do. I'll get into it here in a bit, so warning, spoilers will come in after a bit. And pretty much Sarah inadvertently gets brought into it by Niles. And then shenanigans, for lack of a better way to put it. They pretty much just begin trying. He's just like, I just live my life however. And he even talks about how like he sleeps with a bunch of different people. Like one guy he decided to sleep with. He's like, yeah, why not? He's gay. It's like, I'm gonna put his penis in my butthole. And that's exactly how he puts it. And it's like, alright, it's kind of funny. And it's also kind of telling, it's like, alright, here, I let myself be the bottom. In a fashion, I guess. Kind of funny. And there is some comedy to be had throughout this. There is some actual funny bits. The biggest problem, I think, is just that sometimes the movie really wants to deal with the trauma of things, both for the good and bad. I understand that this is meant to be a romantic comedy. And sure, that's fine if you want to have a movie that is a lot less Groundhog Day and a little bit more towards, the romance that they tried to build in Live, Die, Repeat. I might just keep calling it that, people. But the problem, I think, with that approach is just sometimes it kind of gets a little lost in itself. Like, there's certain things that just don't get as... They're not given as much humor as they probably could have. That's kind of a bad thing and kind of has its issues here and there. But never would I say it's ever outright just terrible. Never is it boring. It's just the laughs, when they're there, they're actually really funny. They're very well done. There's some pretty decent humor here and there. Just are kind of spaced a little too far apart. Spoilers ahead. Like, one of the big things that Sarah's making a big deal about is the fact that she ended up sleeping with her sister, who is the bride's fiance at the time, her soon-to-be husband, the day before they got married. And, alright, not being one of those who condones cheating or anything like that, but they really try to make like this is a big fuck up deal, and this is more proof of something. It's like, wouldn't it be more of a case of showing that her fiance's kind of a scumbag? I mean, it's one of the more like annoying plot threads I always hate in movies. Just to put it out there to everybody who has ever been cheat or has not been cheated on or anything like that, just let you know, it takes two to tango. Trust me, it's not like she just sat there and just like forced him to put his wiener in her. There is something that's like, okay, she's having a lot of burden on her because of this. Like, okay, same instance, he needs to at least accept some kind of responsibility, but because he's such a minor character, I think his name is Abe, if that tells you how little I remembered about him. But he is such a, just this minor, very bothered to introduced character. Like, I don't know anything beyond his name. He's so minute to the entire plot beyond that thread that he is literally a device. And because of that, it's like, okay, so why is Sarah acting like she is such the most horrible person in the world because of that? And there's certain hang-ups she has, such as like, oh, well, I married this one guy and I know I shouldn't have, and all this other stuff. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, Sarah's just not as interesting of a character as she really needs to be for this movie to make me care as much about her. Like, Niall's character, he is, like I say, he's nihilistic. He has a lot of, but he, for all I've noticed, he's been stuck in this kind of loop for, he even says, he's lost count. And sure, that could be, he's been stuck in it a few dozen, maybe 100 times or so. It could be even longer than that. This is a guy who, for all we know, he has spent years within this loop. He's going to be a little on the, pessimistic side. And that pessimism is almost understandable in a lot of regards. That tends to happen with very many of these, time loop movies, put lightly. And he begins to, not worry as much about, trying to get back because, well, I've tried everything. And sure, eventually Sarah figures out the way, which is kind of weird. They just blow themselves up, and it's like, okay. I think it's literally they created that just so the movie could end. And whenever that all happens, Sarah and Niles end up getting together. It's like, but there's still the issue, that she did sleep with her sister's fiance, and her sister's fiance is still a scumbag because of this. Just to willingly cheat on her the day before they're about to get married. I don't know. Maybe it's because some of the real strength it wanted to have, some of the strong messages it wanted to say, it just kind of felt a little flatter than I thought it should. When the movie does decide to be funny, it's actually, like I said, it's actually got some good humor. There is some legitimate good pratfall comedy. This is not too absurd of a premise. It isn't treated too goofily, they decide to, we're just gonna blow up a nuclear weapon just for the lulz. But they do decide at one point to steal a airplane just because they want to fly it, and they crash and they die and they wake back up. Because it's because Niles even kind of explains, yeah, if we die, it doesn't matter. We just pop right back up. We just wake up. There's that kind of stuff happening. It's actually funny. There's some good humor there. But whenever it wants us to try and care about the fact that, Sarah slept with her sister's fiance and not worry about the fact that, the sister's fiance is being an asshole about the whole thing. Like, only once does he get his comeuppance, and even then it's within the time loop, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know. Maybe it's because the movie was too worried about trying to end itself over actually trying to wrap things up in a positive way. Or actually give give an ending to it. It just wanted closure. That's the thing that this movie lacks a lot. And I think that's where I kept having my problems. I kept coming back to this. I'm like, but there's still these little lingering threads. And sure, they kind of mentioned about they figure out, or Sarah figured out a way to send Roy a message so that way he knew how to get out of the loop. Though it's weird because supposedly, since Niles and Sarah are out of the loop, Niles doesn't recognize him while Roy is still in the loop, but that's a whole other thing not going to get into to try and figure out. I don't know. I struggle with the movie. There are parts that are good. There are parts that are really funny. Then there's a lot of parts that leave a lot to be desired. There's nothing egregiously bad about the film. In fact, there's a lot that does elevate this above many other romantic comedies. But then whenever it gets to the last third is really, there's not very much in the way of humor throughout this. Instead, it's trying to deal with the regular old trope of, oh, there was a breakup for the couple and suddenly now they will eventually get their way back together, and even then they just get back together just because Niles happens to be wandering around an area. It just happens just cuz, and it just does not make as much sense as it really wants to. I don't know, it's a tough movie to determine or give an actual score on. To give an actual score, I was almost thinking of a 7, but I was like, that almost feels a little too high. And it's not because the movie is that bad, but just when it is all worried about the romance and everything, that very much, okay, well, this is obviously the secondary part of the movie. Very much, this was meant to be comedy over a romance film. Or comedy more so over a drama. And because of that, its problems constantly rear its head. I give this a 6, if you want an actual score. There's not a lot that is egregiously bad about the movie, but there is enough that constantly will bother you with the film. There are constantly little things you're going to just that just kind of bugs me a bit. And then, like I said, the last act is just really not as good as it really needs to be. For a movie that had as much comedy or a fair amount of comedy, and it needed still to keep that comedy track going, it fell way too short at the end. There just was so little actual comedy. It was actually almost getting kind of pathetic in a lot of regards. It was one was well, I guess we're just not going to have anything funny happening. We're just going to have drama because I need to worry about drama. Like I said, this is not a bad movie. If you want a quick, easy way to kill an hour and a half, go watch it. Do I think anybody's going to watch this and going to have the time of their life? Nah. I don't think this is going to be anybody's favorite comedy of the year. I don't think it's even going to make the top 20 comedies this year, despite how bad this year is in terms of films. But there's nothing that is terrible about this. If you want a decent kind of little romantic film to watch, something to kind of sit back and just kind of enjoy yourself a little bit, you won't hate this. Sounds really mean putting it that way. You will care for this about as much as you do many other romantic comedies I compare this to. Ghost of Girlfriend's Past, which I think is actually funnier, personally. Not to talk about another Matthew McConaughey movie. The Wedding Planner. Sweet Home Alabama, other movies of this ilk. You know, it's a premise that you've kind of seen before, and it doesn't do it particularly new, but it does have its own comedy bits. When it's funny, it's funny, but when it's all worried about the drama, it's kind of unbearable at times, and kind of just. But hey, that's my opinion on Palm Springs. If you watch Palm Springs, let me know what you thought about it. Tell me if you liked it, you not like it, you hate it altogether. I would. Like I said, there's nothing egregiously bad about this. Like, the acting is not terrible. Adam Sandberg's actually pretty decent in this. Sarah, arguably, is probably the worst actress out of all of it, and it's just because she has just the Kristen Stewart doe-eyed thing, to where it's just like... And it kind of is like, sometimes when she's just asked to act and be dramatic, it comes off kind of plain and bored. But that's a personal opinion. That's my own personal take on it, at least. But let me know what you think. And hey, at least next week we'll finally get back to Charlize Theron kicking some ass, because Lord knows I've actually been missing that in my life. I hope it's just good, at least. So until then, I'll see you all later. So, bye-bye, everybody.